What's up guys, going straight back into the video. Today's video is about if Bridgette and Dawn swap seasons. So starting in episode 2, Dawn would breathe the auras of everyone and I think Dawn would jump. Now, I think Dawn would know that Ezekiel was going to say something and would tell him not to say it because he knows that's not what she means. And I think because Dawn said that, and she would be friends with Ezekiel and Harold, and Duncan's going to be friends with these three, Courtney is actually sent home. Episode 3, I think Heather still sabotages Eva's empathy play, which Dawn calls out, and Duncan kind of respects that. So I feel like here it doesn't change anything. But because Eva's empathy play was called out, I think Duncan's group, and they could add Tyler in this universe, and I think everyone just votes off Katie because Katie and Sadie are the worst in the challenge. I think everyone just votes Katie off here. Episode 4 is the dodgeball, and Noah Fuselage doesn't compete, and because of that, he gets voted off. Episode 5. No, in the first place. In episode 5, the talent show, I think it's Trent, Heather, and Justin. I think Harold still wins the beatboxing challenge, and Justin gets voted off like normal. Episode 6 is Sucky Outdoors. Now I get some actual changes. First of all, because Dawn is very about nature and Sadie and Kate don't get lost, Dawn would welcome Sadie to the group and say that they could join their friendship group. Duncan would add Eva and Tyler in his little alliance. And I think here the Gophers actually lose the challenge because of Owen and Izzy. And I think everyone just votes off Izzy because she is the biggest threat and she did chase him up a tree rather than Owen just telling a bear story. Episode 7 is Phobia Factor, so Trent passes, Heather passes, Cody fails, Sean fails, and everyone else passes. Duncan passes the cardboard and Jeff fails. DJ fails. Tyler passes his chickens. I think Dawn and Eva can convince him to pass. DJ passes, Eva passes. Dawn would be hurting nature and she would absolutely fail. Ezekiel would pass, Harold fails. And I think the Killer Bass loses the challenge. Actually, no, Ezekiel would win. Yeah, the win might be to the Gophers, but they would fail. So 6. Actually, no, sorry. 3, 6, 5. So the Bass win and the Gophers lose, and then Heather can get. Now Trent hasn't and Cody hasn't yet made up with each other. And if it was on one episode later, no chance. But I think at this point in the season, I think Cody would vote for Trent, and Heather would get the other 3 to vote for Trent as well. Now, Cody failed his fear spectacularly in this episode, and considering the fact Heather was able to come into one of the original to do the same thing, I have no reason to believe they couldn't pull the same thing off here. So everyone gangs upon Cody. Episode 8 is Up the Creek, it's Gwen and Trent, Owen and LaShawna, Heather and Lindsay. Jeff wouldn't be in Bridgette, so he's more about Duncan here. So it's gonna be Duncan and Jeff, DJ and Tyler, Ezekiel and Harold, and I think that leaves the girls in a boat together, Eva, Dawn, and Sadie. I think Dawn is calming Eva pretty calm here, and I feel like Eva, Dawn, and Sadie would actually like a girls arc in this episode and actually bomb very well. Now that as you get Izzy to give him an idea to push back the Killer Bass, I don't think the Killer Bass win here. I think the Gophers win because they have a lot less of a smaller team. On top of the fact, Izzy was the reason the Killer Bass won the challenge. So Harold still accidentally burns the oars. And Sadie would vote Harold with them. So I think Harold actually gets eliminated here. In episode 9, Paintball Deer Hunter, I think It's Trent, Gwen, and Heather. Duncan, Jeff, DJ, Tyler is there. Dawn's there. Eva's there. Ezekiel's there. Dawn's a hunter. I think the Killer Bats win the challenge. Now, Heather would get Lindsay Owen a vote for Trent. And Trent, Gwen, and Lashawna would ask Trent who don't face in a tiebreaker. So, because Trent knows he would have to face a tiebreaker, he votes Lindsay. And in Lindsay Trent tiebreaker, I think Lindsay gets eliminated. In episode 10 is the cooking challenge, and I think Owen still gets the ribs, so he's getting voted off. In episode 11, Who You Can Trust, this is Gwen and Trent, Duncan DJ, Shauna Heather, Jeff and Eva, Jeff and Shauna Heather, Gwen Trent, Tyler Ezekiel, Dawn Sadie, Shauna Heather, Dawn Sadie, DJ and Jeff, Gwen and Lashawna win the challenge. And because there's no Courtney, Dawn would convince Eva and Tyler to vote for DJ, as they realize once these three are gone, they're next, and they can't really have that. And I think they would agree with Dawn to stick with the underdogs, so DJ gets sent home. Episode 12, Basic Training. I think Eva and Tyler wins the challenge. Now, Heather can't save herself, as I don't think she's able to convince anyone on this team. So Heather's out. In episode 13 is Extreme Torture. So it's Trent and Tyler, Trent, Shauna, Jeff, Shauna, then it's Gwen and Eva. Now, Eva would win the challenge here, as there's no reason for the Killbats to lose. And Gwen and Trent vote with Shauna. So I think the guys win, but it doesn't really matter because it's a non-elimination round. And now we're at the merge, and we need to promote 2 people in this merge. It's going to be Noah because Heather just got eliminated, and I think it makes things quite interesting. So I think Eva wins the challenge. Tyler wins the challenge. So no, Eva would win this challenge, and I think this was between Eva and Tyler. So Noah would make an alliance with Eva and Izzy. Dawn would talk to Tyler and Ezekiel on how they need to work together to get out Duncan. Tyler's with Duncan. These two are together. I think Ezekiel and Gwen and Trent. So these three are together. And I think Noah and Dawn would talk together, and Noah convinces Dawn that they need to vote for someone in Duncan's group. And they go for Duncan, who's majority seen as the biggest threat. So Dawn gets Ezekiel and Sadie, which gives him 6 votes, with Noah 3 votes, so 3 and 3. Duncan convincing Gwen and Trent to vote. Noah, it doesn't matter. Duncan's out. Episode 17, How to Be Sneaky. I think here what would happen is Noah wins the challenge, and I think that's really that. So I think Dawn convince Tyler and Jeff to vote Eva. I think Eva would win, calling out Tyler on the roof. And I think Noah wins the challenge for best hiding spot. So these 3 vote Gwen. Dawn, Sadie, and Ezekiel vote Eva, so that's 3 Eva. Tyler and Jeff also vote Eva, so I think Eva is out here. In episode 18 is the bike race, and Izzy and Noah are off in the entire episode. Gwen wipes out, and Jeff forgets the bolt. Tyler wipes out, so we're off the second round. So Trent's going to make him bike he crosses, I think Dawn and Zeke would cross before Sadie, so I think Sadie is out here. Episode 19, Silkround Screamer, I think Izzy gets caught. Ezekiel, he wins the challenge because Tyler gets caught and Gwen, it's Jeff. Gwen and Trent together, so they fight this fake killer. Ezekiel and Noah fight the real one, so they win immunity. So how we decide who leads? I think now we have to have a traditional vote. So let's say that. Let's say these four have immunity. Right, so I think these four have immunity. And I think they go for Tyler, who's generally... They go for Jeff, who's generally seen as the biggest threat. And Noah and Dawn are still in their little alliance. And they're able to convince Tyler and Ezekiel to vote for Jeff. In episode 20's Wakanda Gone Wild, and Noah would agree with Dawn that they need to get rid of Gwen and Trent because they're a couple. I think Dawn wins the challenge and they go for Gwen because she would actually win more challenges than Trent and is a better challenge beast. In episode 21's Wakanda Gone Wild, so it's Noah and Tyler, Izzy and Dawn, Izzy and Izzy, Dawn and Ezekiel, which leaves Trent and Izzy. So the eating challenge, I think it's Ezekiel Dawn. There used to be only on Tyler and Noah. Remember sure Tyler and Noah. But they think it's a popularity contest at this point, so they vote for Trent. So basically Noah has his group. Because Noah's immune, Dawn convinces the guys to vote for Izzy. In episode 22 is going to be Trent. 23 is nomination. Episode 24 is basically Brain versus Brawn, and I think Noah and Dawn would use their smart to get to the end and would get there a lot faster. So between Ezekiel and Tyler, I definitely think Zeke would lose, as I think Chef would just eliminate him. In episode 25, I think Dawn is very sad Ezekiel is out, and I think Tyler definitely makes it at the end. So between Noah and Dawn, I think Noah would make it before Dawn, so I feel like she has less resilience. And I think Tyler and Noah are in the finale, and they each get winning endings. System I think it's gonna go on. Okay. Not quite sure why it's. And now we'll straight into total drama. Revenge of the Old. So episode 1, I think Bridgette gets put into the rats, and her introduction's the same. Scott would also see her quite interesting and a threat at this point, and I think in episode 1, Stacy still had something like normal. Again, Dakota would get voted off for the same reason. Scott would see through him for 15 seconds, Dakota goes. In episode 3, Scott still sabotages B, and Scavenger and Brick get swapped over to the rats. So Backstabbers ahoy, it's lightning and Sergio. Scott drives and Zoe shoots. So I think the rats still lose the challenge here. Now, Scott wouldn't call out, Bridgette wouldn't call out Scott here because she wouldn't be as suspicious as Dawn. And Scott really doesn't have anyone he wants to sabotage. But the original strategy was to sabotage Brick because he's the new guy and Scott would see him as a very easy target. So now Scott's plan would actually work and everyone just gangs up on Brick. So unfortunately for Brick, he's getting voted off here. In episode 6 is Runway Model, and I think in the end the rats lose the challenge and Sam gets voted off. Joe and Scott still swap teams, and there you go. Episode 7 is this basically where they have to do the diamond challenge. So with the diamonds, I think Ambery gets captured. and everyone's trying to save her. I think Bridget still gets a statuette. The maggots get attacked. Now, I think Bridget would want to save the maggots, so I feel like she would go and save them, like Brick does. But I think the rats would win the challenge because the only reason they lost was because of Brick, so I feel like they would win. And Zoe votes for Anne-Maria. Cameron and Mike vote for Anne-Maria, and Scott will just read the room and go for Anne-Maria. Now these two are for each other. Mike and Cameron vote for Scott, and Scott votes for Anne-Maria, wanting to gain Zoe's trust at this point. So Scott and Anne-Maria are just sent home because Anne-Maria quits, and Scott's going to lose to a tiebreaker round. So I think Chris will just send both of them home. Because Anne-Maria quit, Dakota Zoid still comes back as a player. I think Scott and Anne-Maria have to face a tiebreaker here, but Anne-Maria still quits after this challenge, so she gets sent home. And episode 8 is the episode where they have to go on the raft. Scott shows Zoe he's mean out in good faith. He still misleads his team. The rats win the challenge. Everyone votes for Scott, but Scott is immediate idol and gets rid of Cameron because Mike knows about his multiple personalities. So now we have to merge, and Bridget is in merge, so that's really interesting. In episode 9, Scott blackmails Mike the entire episode because there's something he can't blackmail Mike for something he's not keeping a secret. He's getting voted off here. Episode 10, Bridget replaces Cameron, but she wouldn't make Joe a hot air balloon. And I feel like Lightning would win the challenge because Joe, outside of Joe, Cameron, he did the best. And I think Lightning would choose to get rid of Joe. Episode 11 is basically If You Can Give Away. Scott still wins the first part of the challenge. And Lightning wins the challenge. Now, Scott is able to convince Lightning, but is unable to convince Bridget and Zoe. So Bridget and Zoe vote for Scott, and Scott and Lightning vote for Zoe. And in this original episode, Zoe was Commando, which I'm going to get Commando Zoe. So Zoe still is Commando. And I'm pretty sure Commando Zoe could beat Scott in any tiebreaker, so I think Commando Zoe is here. Basically in episode 12, I think Zoe would still go back. Bridget is stronger than Cameron, so I think she'd be able to hold her own, but Lightning still wins the challenge. And I think Lightning chooses to take Commando Zoe to the end, as I think he would choose to take Bridget, because even though Bridget wouldn't be as weak as Cameron, I think Zoe would definitely make it before is eliminated. So I think Lightning chooses to take Bridget. So Lightning and Bridget in the finale. And that's it for the show. Thank you guys for watching. This is the version of things I'm going to go on. If Bridget and Dawn swap seasons. And yeah, peace for a while.